Apparently, finding a handwritten note in your husband's cargo shorts that says Saturday 10 p.m. she can't know isn't what relationship counselors mean by maintaining mystery in marriage. But there I was, Tuesday morning in our South Congress condo, holding that crumpled Post-it like it was evidence in a crime documentary. Which, spoiler alert, it basically was. My name's Riley. I'm 29. A certified personal trainer who can deadlift 200 pounds and spot a lie from across a crowded Whole Foods. I'd been married to Colton for 4 blissful years. The kind of marriage that made other couples at brunch say relationship goals while secretly hating us a little. We had the renovated condo with exposed brick, matching his and hers hydro flasks, and one of those annoyingly photogenic relationships that looked perfect on Instagram. Colton owned a CrossFit box. Sorry, co-owned, because apparently accurate financial disclosure matters when your marriage is about to implode. On South Congress with his business partner Wade, 32 years old, 6'2", the kind of guy who genuinely uses protein powder in his morning smoothie and thinks cargo shorts are acceptable adult attire. That should have been my first red flag, honestly. Any man over 30 wearing cargo shorts is either a dad at Disneyland or hiding something. Colton wasn't a dad. The note was in the pocket of those cursed cargo shorts, which I'd grabbed from the bedroom floor Tuesday morning to throw in the wash. I'm not one of those wives who goes through pockets looking for evidence. I was literally just trying to prevent our washing machine from eating another wadded-up receipt. But that little yellow Post-it might as well have been neon. Saturday, 10 p.m., she can't know. Not, babe, don't forget. Not, reminder for us, just she. Like I was some nameless obstacle to whatever sketchy activity required a reminder note. The handwriting wasn't even his. Too loopy, definitely feminine. And the paper smelled like vanilla perfume, which I absolutely did not wear because vanilla gives me migraines. I stood there in our kitchen, the kind with subway tile backsplash and that farmhouse sink I'd specifically chosen, holding this note like it might spontaneously combust. 3 options immediately presented themselves. 1. Confront Colton directly like a reasonable adult. 2. Ignore it and see what happens Saturday like some masochistic social experiment. Or 3. Become a private investigator for the weekend and potentially destroy my entire life. Obviously, I chose option 3. I'm a personal trainer. We're literally paid to push people past their comfort zones. The next few days were a masterclass in acting normal while internally spiraling. Wednesday, Colton came home from the box talking about some new rowing machines they were installing. I smiled and nodded while mentally cataloging every detail of his appearance. Thursday, we went to our favorite taco place on East 6th Street, Torchy's, because we're basic Austin transplants who think queso is a personality trait, and I watched him text someone under the table. When I asked who, he said, "Just Wade about scheduling." Sure, because gym scheduling requires that secretive little smile. Friday night, he suggested we watch a movie. We settled on the couch with our matching hydro flasks, his with pre-workout, mine with water and a shot of Betrayal, and I realized I was watching him instead of the screen. Every phone buzz made my stomach drop. Every time he shifted positions, I wondered if he was thinking about Saturday at 10 p.m. Saturday arrived with that unseasonably cool Austin morning that made me actually consider sweater weather in late August, 72 degrees instead of the usual 95. One of those rare meteorological gifts that happens maybe twice a year. The kind of morning that should have been spent at Barton Springs or hiking the Greenbelt. Instead, I was preparing for what I privately called Operation Catch a Cheater, though I still didn't actually know what I was catching him doing. Colton spent the day at the box, texted around 3 that he'd be home by 6. He walked in at 6:47 p.m. I noted the time because I was apparently now that person, showered immediately without being asked, and emerged smelling like that Dior Sauvage cologne I'd given him for his birthday in January. The cologne he claimed made him sneeze, and had used maybe twice. "I need to head back to the box around 9, he said casually, scrolling his phone while standing in our closet. Wade texted that some new equipment got delivered late, needs to be unloaded and set up tonight. On a Saturday night? I asked, keeping my voice perfectly neutral, which took more effort than 100 burpees. Yeah, The delivery company screwed up the timing. Should only take an hour or so. I nodded, returning to my laptop where I was pretending to update client workout plans, but actually reviewing my mental surveillance strategy. At 8:53 p.m., Colton grabbed his keys, kissed my forehead, the audacity, and said he'd be back by 11. The second his truck pulled out of our parking garage, I was up. Grabbed my keys, my phone, a baseball cap I normally wore to hide bad hair days, and headed to my red Jeep Wrangler. Started the engine and immediately felt ridiculous. What was I doing? Following my husband like some scorned housewife in a Lifetime movie? But then I remembered that note, "She can't know," and decided scorned housewife was an upgrade from clueless wife. I knew the route to his CrossFit box by heart. South Congress to Oltorf, then left. Takes 12 minutes without traffic. But at 9:17 p.m., when I'd been following him for 15 minutes, Colton's truck didn't turn toward the box. He headed east, toward the neighborhoods off East Riverside. My heart started doing this thing where it beat too fast and too slow simultaneously, which probably isn't medically possible, but accurately described my panic. At 9:54 p.m., his truck slowed in front of a house I recognized immediately. Not because I'd been there recently, but because I'd been there hundreds of times over the past decade. The cute bungalow with the turquoise door and those string lights wrapped around the front porch posts. The house where I'd spent countless Friday nights drinking wine and complaining about work. The house belonging to Tegan, my best friend since we met freshman year at UT Austin when we were randomly assigned as roommates. I parked 2 houses down, engine off, baseball cap pulled low like that would somehow make my bright red Jeep invisible. Watched Colton check his phone, probably confirming it was exactly 10 p.m., then walk up that familiar pathway I'd walked, drunk, sober, happy, sad, and every emotion in between. The turquoise door opened before he could knock. Tegan stood there wearing that red wrap dress from Nordstrom, the one I'd helped her pick out 3 months ago when she said she had a date with someone special. Her blonde hair was down. She always wore it down when she wanted to look pretty. And even from 2 houses away, I could see she'd done the full makeup, the kind that takes 40 minutes and YouTube tutorials. Colton stepped inside. She touched his arm. He leaned down. He was almost a foot taller than her 5'4" frame, and kissed her. Not a friendly peck, not an accidental stumble. A kiss, the kind with hand placement and tilted heads and the kind of familiarity that doesn't develop in an afternoon. The door closed. I sat in my Jeep, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, and felt something I didn't expect. Not sadness, not shock, but absolute crystalline clarity. That note hadn't been about business. Those late nights at the box probably weren't about equipment. And my best friend, the woman who'd held my bouquet during my wedding vows 4 years ago, who'd given a tearful maid of honor speech about soulmates and forever, was currently inside that turquoise door house with my husband. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't march up to that door like a reality TV star looking for a confrontation. Instead, I took out my phone, opened my notes app, and started documenting. Time, location, what I'd seen. Then I drove home, poured myself a glass of the expensive Cabernet we were saving for our anniversary next month, and called the one person whose judgment I actually trusted. "Marin," I said when she answered, "I need a lawyer, and I need one who specializes in absolutely destroying people's lives legally." Marin picked up on the second ring, which was impressive considering it was 10:43 p.m. on a Saturday, and she had a 3-year-old who believed sleep was optional. "Riley, what's wrong?" "Define wrong," I said, taking another sip of wine that was definitely more generous than recommended serving sizes. "Does discovering your husband playing tongue hockey with your maid of honor count, or is that more of a learning experience?" Silence. Then, "I'm putting on real pants. Talk." I told her everything while she apparently speed-dressed in the background. The note, the surveillance mission that sounded less Nancy Drew and more restraining order waiting to happen, and the visual confirmation that my marriage was as real as Colton's claims that CrossFit was totally not a cult. "Okay," Marin said, her lawyer voice activating. "First rule, do not, under any circumstances, confront either of them yet. Second rule, do you know his passwords?" He uses the same password for everything. CrossFit 2021. Yes, with capital letters. Yes, I've told him that's basically a hacker's welcome mat. Perfect. His digital security is terrible, and that's our advantage. Go to iCloud.com right now. Access his account. I pulled out my laptop, fingers actually shaking, which annoyed me because I'd literally competed in bodybuilding competitions where I had to stand on stage in a bikini in front of hundreds of people. But apparently, betrayal triggers different nervous system responses than stage fright. Typed in his email, CrossFit 2021. And just like that, I was in. Holy. I stopped myself. Marin, there are 68 deleted messages from Tegan in the deleted folder, dating back 6 months. Screenshot everything, Marin commanded. Don't read them yet if you want to maintain your sanity. Just document. We need evidence for the divorce proceedings that's coming. Divorce. The word landed like a kettlebell dropped from overhead. 4 years of marriage, 7 years together total, and I was sitting here screenshotting my husband's affair like I was gathering evidence for some true crime podcast I'd accidentally become the star of. But I did it. Scrolled through messages that made my stomach turn. Meet you at the usual spot. She's got a client until 7. We're good. Can't wait to see you tonight. And my personal favorite, this weekend when Riley's at that training certification in San Antonio, we'll have the whole day. That certification. Back in late March. I'd driven an hour and a half to San Antonio for an advanced sports nutrition course, stayed overnight at a Hampton Inn that smelled like chlorine and broken dreams, then driven back Sunday evening exhausted. I'd texted Colton that I was tired and he'd responded with, "Get some rest, babe. You work so hard." Meanwhile, he'd apparently been working hard on destroying our marriage in our own condo. There are photos, I told Marin, clicking through his photo stream with the kind of morbid curiosity that makes people slow down at car accidents. From inside our place, on our couch. The couch we picked out together at Room and Board. That couch cost $2,200, Marin said. I remember because you made us all sit on 17 different couches that day. 2,300, I corrected. We upgraded the fabric, which apparently Colton and Tegan enjoyed very much based on these extremely PG-13 photos I'm currently documenting. More screenshots. Hotel receipts. The Fairmont downtown. Because apparently budget motels weren't good enough for their affair. Venmo transactions to Tegan for dinner and drinks, which felt insulting because he'd been funding their dates with our joint account. Reservations at restaurants we'd been to together, like they were just recycling our relationship for spare parts. 6 months, I said out loud, doing the mental math. They started this in early March, right after Tegan broke up with that guy she was seeing. What was his name? Barrett? The finance bro who worked downtown? Wait, Marin's voice sharpened. Didn't she cry on your couch about that breakup? Didn't you literally make her soup and let her sleep in your guest room? Chicken tortilla soup from scratch, I confirmed. She stayed for 3 days. Said she couldn't stand being alone in her house because it reminded her of him. Meanwhile, she was apparently already planning to steal my husband. Plot twist, maybe she broke up with Barrett specifically to make herself available. The timestamps on the messages confirmed it. First deleted text from Tegan to Colton, March 8th, 3 days after her devastating breakup, where I'd held her while she ugly cried into my decorative throw pillows. I need to throw up, I announced. You need to keep documenting, Marin countered. Emotional breakdown comes after evidence collection. Check his calendar, his emails, everything. His calendar was a roadmap of lies. Late equipment delivery on 12 different Saturdays. Inventory check on Thursday evenings when I had late clients. Meeting with supplement vendor that coincidentally happened at the same time as Tegan's work happy hours. She'd invited me to, but I'd always been too tired to attend. The emails were somehow worse. He'd created a separate Gmail account, CrossFit Colton 2024, because apparently creativity wasn't his strong suit, specifically for communicating with Tegan. Love letters. Actual love letters in 2025, like he'd time-traveled from a Jane Austen novel but with worse grammar and gym metaphors. You're my favorite workout, one read, and I actually laughed out loud at the pure cringe. What? Marin asked. He compared her to a workout. He told her, being with you is like hitting a new PR every time. Marin, He's using CrossFit terminology to express romantic feelings. This man has negative game. And yet he successfully ran an affair for 6 months, Marin pointed out. Don't confuse cringe with stupid. He's been calculated about this. She was right. Looking at the pattern, the deleted messages, the burner email, the specific timing of their meetups around my schedule, this wasn't some impulsive mistake. This was premeditated, planned, coordinated betrayal with the organizational skills of someone planning a surprise party. Except the surprise was that my entire life was a lie. Apparently, despite running a business, Colton's tech skills peaked at posting gym selfies. He'd never thought to disable iCloud backup or use encrypted messaging. Digital incompetence was about to become his most expensive mistake. I kept scrolling, kept screenshotting, kept discovering new layers of deception like the world's worst archaeological dig. Found receipts for jewelry I'd never seen. A bracelet from Kendra Scott, the Austin jewelry store that every basic woman in Texas owns something from. Tegan had posted a photo wearing that exact bracelet 5 weeks ago with the caption, "Treating myself." Yeah, except my husband's credit card did the treating. Marin, he bought her the same bracelet he bought me for our anniversary. The same one. Different color, but same style. That's actually helpful for the divorce proceedings, Marin said clinically. Shows pattern of financial deception using marital assets. Keep documenting. Around midnight, I finally closed the laptop. My wine glass was empty. My marriage was over. And I had approximately 400 screenshots that would make any divorce attorney weep with joy. What now? I asked. Now, you do nothing, Marin said firmly. You act completely normal. You smile. You pretend everything's fine. Because the second he knows you know, he'll start hiding assets, deleting more evidence, and making this harder than it needs to be. Can you do that? I deadlift 200 pounds and smile through muscle failure, I said. I can smile through anything. Good. We meet Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, my office. We're going to destroy him legally, financially, and socially. But we do it smart. After we hung up, I sat in our living room, our temporary living room apparently, and looked around at the life I'd built. The framed photos from our wedding where Tegan stood next to me, holding my bouquet. The gallery wall of our adventures, skiing in Colorado, beach trip to South Padre, countless brunch photos that screamed, "Look how happy we are." All of it was set decoration for a show that had been canceled without anyone telling me. Colton came home at 11:47 p.m., a full 47 minutes later than his promised hour or so. He smiled, kissed my forehead again, the audacity truly never ended, and said the equipment setup took longer than expected. "How's Tegan?" I asked casually, watching his face. He didn't even flinch. "What?" "Tegan. Your coworker." "Oh, wait. That's Wade. I meant Tegan, my best friend who you've been sleeping with for 6 months in our home, her home, and various hotels around Austin. That Tegan." "Just kidding." I didn't say that. Instead, I smiled and said, "I was thinking we should have them over for dinner soon. Wade and his wife, maybe Tegan if she's not too busy. It's been a while since we all hung out." "Yeah, totally," Colton said, already heading to the bedroom. "That'd be fun." Fun, that's what he called it. Fun. I stayed on the couch another hour, finishing the wine bottle, mentally cataloging every lie, every manipulation, every moment I'd believed in us while he was actively building a second relationship behind my back. And I made a decision. If Colton wanted to play games, fine. But he was playing checkers while I was about to introduce him to competitive chess. And unlike CrossFit, this was one competition where participation trophies didn't exist. Sunday morning arrived with that specific Austin sunshine that makes everything look Instagram filtered, which felt personally offensive given my current situation. Colton woke up at 7:30, made his usual protein smoothie with banana and that powder that costs $40 per container, and kissed me goodbye before heading to the box for the Sunday morning class he taught. "Love you, babe," he said, like he hadn't spent the previous evening with his tongue down my best friend's throat. "Love you too," I replied, because apparently I'd enrolled in advanced-level acting classes overnight. The second his truck pulled out, I was on my laptop again, but this time, I wasn't looking at his messages. I was looking at our assets. Because Marin's voice from last night kept echoing, destroy him legally, financially, and socially. Turns out, being married to someone who thinks financial planning means buying protein powder in bulk means you don't really pay attention to whose name is on what. I pulled up our property records, our bank accounts, our investment portfolios that I'd honestly forgotten existed because Colton had always handled the boring money stuff. The condo. Purchased 3 years ago, right after we got married. Valued at $475,000 according to the latest Zillow estimate, which was probably conservative because South Congress real estate was hotter than the pavement in August. And according to the deed I was currently staring at, it was titled solely in my name. My name. Riley Brennan. Not Colton's, not joint tenancy. Just mine. I sat back, actually laughing out loud in our empty living room. My grandmother had died 2 months before our wedding, left me $200,000 with a handwritten note that said, "Don't let any man touch this." My parents had thought she was being dramatic. Grammy was always dramatic, wore leopard print to church and told people exactly what she thought of their life choices. But I'd followed her advice. Took us nearly a year to find the right place in South Congress, but when we did, I used that inheritance as the down payment and kept the title in my name alone. Colton had been so thrilled about living in a sick condo that he'd never questioned the paperwork. The red Jeep. Paid off completely. Title in my name. Purchased 2 years ago with money I'd saved from my training business before we even combined finances. Our joint savings account showed $43,000. Our joint checking had about $8,000 for monthly expenses. But my separate business account, the one I'd maintained for my personal training clients who paid me directly, had $67,000 that Colton barely knew existed because he thought personal training was cute side income compared to his CrossFit empire. Then I found something interesting. Really interesting. The CrossFit box ownership papers. Colton owned 51%. Wade owned 49%. But here's what made it fascinating. Wade had put up 80% of the initial capital when they'd opened 4 years ago, just a few months after our wedding when Colton was flush with gift money and convinced he was going to revolutionize Austin fitness. Colton had contributed 20% using money from our wedding gifts, which, technically in Texas community property law, made those gifts partially mine since we were married when he invested them. I texted Marin. Found something. How much do wedding gifts count as community property in business investments? Her response came in 14 seconds. Everything acquired during marriage is community property unless explicitly separate. But for investments, you'd have a claim on the appreciation value, not the initial capital. Why? Because I think I accidentally own part of the appreciation of a CrossFit box. See you at 9 tomorrow. Bring everything. The rest of Sunday was a performance worthy of an Oscar. Colton came home around 2. We went to Barton Springs Pool because it was gorgeous outside, and apparently drowning my sorrows in natural spring water felt appropriate. We laid on the grass afterward, and he held my hand while scrolling through his phone with the other, probably texting Tegan about how he'd rather be with her, or whatever cliché affair partners text each other. Every touch felt like acting in a play where I knew the ending, but he didn't. Grammy would have been proud of my performance. She'd executed exactly this strategy during her 3rd divorce, smiling at her husband for 6 months while her attorney built an airtight case. "You seem happy," Colton said at one point, looking at me with what I'd previously thought was genuine affection, but now recognized as the expression of someone who thinks they're getting away with something. "I am," I said honestly, because I was happy. Happy that I'd be divorcing him with maximum financial protection. Happy that my grandmother's paranoia had accidentally saved my entire life. Happy that he was so convinced of his own cleverness that he had no idea what was coming. We had dinner at Home Slice Pizza on South Congress, ran into 3 people from the box who stopped to chat, and I played the perfect wife. Laughed at Colton's stories, touched his arm at appropriate moments, acted like I didn't know that our marriage had an expiration date stamped approximately 18 hours from now. Monday morning, I woke up at 6:30, did my usual workout routine because even existential crises don't skip leg day, and told Colton I had an early client meeting. Not technically a lie. Marin was paying me for consultations with her sanity. Her office was in downtown Austin, one of those converted historic buildings that cost more per square foot than most people's mortgages. Marin herself looked like she'd mainlined espresso, power suit, hair in a bun so tight it could double as a facelift, and the kind of expression that made opposing counsel reconsider their career choices. "Show me everything," she said before I'd even sat down. I pulled out my laptop, opened the folder I'd created labeled Evidence of Comprehensive Betrayal, and watched Marin's expression shift from professional interest to predatory satisfaction. "This is beautiful," she said after 20 minutes of scrolling. "This is organized, documented, time-stamped perfection. Did you intern at a law firm I don't know about? I create personalized workout programs for clients and track their progress weekly," I said. "Organization is literally my job." She pulled up a legal pad, started writing notes in handwriting that looked like caffeinated hieroglyphics. "Okay, here's what we're doing. First, we file for divorce citing adultery, which in Texas can affect property division. Second, we document every marital asset he used for this affair. Hotel rooms, gifts, dinners. That's dissipation of marital assets and you're entitled to reimbursement. What about the condo? Yours. He gets nothing. It's separate property via inheritance." She looked up, grinning. "Your grandmother was a genius. She told me men were trash and I should always have an escape plan. I thought she was being bitter after her third divorce." "She was being experienced," Marin corrected. "What about the CrossFit box?" I explained what I'd found. The ownership split, the investment source, the timing. Marin's smile got wider. "Community property invested in a business during marriage gives you a claim to the appreciation value of his stake. Not the initial capital, but the growth. That box has grown significantly in 4 years, right? They went from 30 members to about 85. Revenues probably tripled, which means the appreciation value of your community property share has tripled. We're going after that too." She made more notes. "What about the affair partner? Any shared assets?" "Tegan's a wedding coordinator, runs a business with a partner named Sloan, lives in a house her parents helped her buy. No shared assets with us, but I want her destroyed socially, professionally. Every bride in Austin needs to know she can't be trusted around husbands." Marin leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You want revenge." "I want consequences," I corrected. "There's a difference. Revenge is emotional. Consequences are just accurate cause and effect." "I like how you think." She pulled out a contract. "Standard retainer, but honestly, with evidence this good, this'll be quick. I'm thinking we serve him at the CrossFit box. Public, embarrassing, and sends a message to Wade that his business partner has some significant legal problems incoming." "When?" "Friday. Gives us 4 days to file paperwork, prepare the full asset list, and make sure everything's airtight. Meanwhile, you act completely normal. Can you do that?" I thought about Grammy, who'd smiled at her third husband every day for 6 months, while her attorney built an ironclad case that left him with nothing but his golf clubs and regret. "It's genetic," I said. We spent another hour going through details. Marin explained Texas divorce law like she was narrating a true crime documentary, community property splits, separate property protection, the beauty of adultery clauses in a fault-based divorce state. By the time I left her office at 11:30, I had a strategy, a timeline, and a very clear understanding that Colton had fundamentally underestimated who he'd married. I went to work, trained my noon client, a 54-year-old woman preparing for her daughter's wedding who kept saying she wanted to look good in photos, and realized I was giving advice about strength training while planning to demonstrate an entirely different kind of strength. That evening, Colton came home with Thai food from our favorite place on East 6th Street. We ate pad Thai on the couch, watched some Netflix show about people renovating houses, and he told me about his day like everything was normal. Like he hadn't spent his lunch break texting another woman. Like our entire marriage wasn't currently being dismantled by legal professionals downtown. Tuesday through Wednesday passed in identical domestic theater. Thursday afternoon, while Colton was teaching his 4 p.m. class, I hired 2 movers from TaskRabbit. Paid them $300 cash to pack every piece of Colton's clothing, his supplements, his CrossFit gear, his foam rollers, and that collection of workout tanks that all said some variation of earned not given. Everything went into a 10 by 10 climate-controlled storage unit I'd rented that morning, in my name. With the first month paid, access code texted to myself for later. At 5 p.m., a locksmith arrived. $240.45 later, every lock in the condo was changed. Colton's key would work exactly nowhere. Thursday evening, Colton texted around 7. Staying late at the box for inventory. Wade and I need to figure out some ordering issues. Be home around 11. Perfect timing. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later, my mom calling for the third time that week. I sent her to voicemail with a text. In the middle of something. We'll call this weekend. Love you. That conversation could wait until after the explosion. I'm glad we're doing this, he'd said the night before, gesturing at the TV, the food, the domestic scene. Me too, I'd agreed. Because I was glad. Glad I'd found out. Glad I had evidence. Glad that in less than 24 hours his entire world would implode while mine would just be finally, honestly, authentically beginning. Friday morning, I woke up at 6, did my usual workout, because Spite is an excellent pre-workout supplement, and told Colton I had back-to-back clients all morning. Not a lie. My 9 a.m. client, Patricia, wanted to work on her deadlift form. My 11 a.m. client, Marcus, was training for a marathon. Between them, at approximately 10:07 a.m., my husband would be served divorce papers in front of his entire morning class. Love you, babe, Colton said, kissing my forehead on his way out at 8:30. You too, I replied. And for the first time all week, I didn't feel like I was lying. I did love him. Past tense. Loved who I'd thought he was. But that person had never actually existed. So really, I was just mourning a fictional character. At 9:53 a.m., my phone buzzed. Marin. Server is parking now. At 10:04 a.m., he's inside. At 10:11 a.m. Done. Colton's reaction was apparently visible from space. Your phone's about to blow up. She wasn't wrong. At 10:13, Colton called. I declined. He called again. Declined. Text message. Riley, what the heck? Followed by, this is insane, we need to talk. Followed by, you can't just serve me at work. I responded with one message. You can't just sleep with my best friend for 6 months, but here we are. My lawyer will contact you regarding asset division. Don't come to the condo. I've changed the locks. Your belongings are in storage unit 247 at Secure Space on Manchaca. First month paid. Code is 4739. After that, it's your problem. My phone started getting texts from people at the box. Screenshots of Colton standing in the middle of class, divorce papers in hand, looking like he'd been hit by a truck. One member, Sienna, who I'd trained privately for 3 months, sent, Girl, everyone's talking. What happened? I responded, 6-month affair with my maid of honor. I have documentation. Feel free to share. Within an hour, the CrossFit Box's group chat, which I was still part of, and which Colton had apparently forgotten about, was absolutely exploding. People were furious. Not at me. At him. Turned out, Colton had positioned himself as the relationship goals guy, constantly posting about our marriage, talking about loyalty and commitment during workouts. His entire brand was built on integrity. Wade called me at 10:47. Riley, I am so sorry. I had no idea. This is completely unacceptable. Wade, you have nothing to apologize for. This isn't your mess. It kind of is, he said, sounding stressed. He's a co-owner. This reflects on the business. We've already had 8 formal cancellations this morning, and another 11 members called threatening to leave if Colton stays involved. On a membership base of 85, that's almost a quarter of our revenue at risk within 2 hours. This is a disaster. Then maybe you should buy him out, I suggested casually. My lawyer can send you the information about his ownership stake. Apparently, part of the appreciation value might be considered community property since he invested our wedding money. Just a thought. Wade was quiet for a long moment. Your lawyer have a number I can call? I gave him Marin's contact information and hung up feeling like a chess grandmaster who'd just executed a flawless strategy. But the real satisfaction came at 11:23 a.m. when Tegan called. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hey, Tegan. Riley, I can explain. Can you? I interrupted. Can you explain 6 months of sleeping with my husband? Can you explain crying on my couch about your breakup while planning to steal mine? Can you explain wearing the bracelet he bought you with our money while pretending to be my friend? Because honestly, I'd love to hear the explanation for that. Silence. Then, crying. I'm so sorry. It just happened. Nothing just happens for 6 months, Tegan. That requires planning, coordination, lying every single day. You didn't just slip and fall into his bed. You made choices, hundreds of them. Own it. Are you going to tell people? Tell people? Tegan, I already told people. Everyone. Your profession is based on trust. Brides trust you with the most important day of their lives, and you work with their fiancés on vendor coordination, timeline planning. How many of those brides do you think will trust you around their future husbands now? More crying. I felt nothing. You destroyed my business, she sobbed. No, I corrected. You destroyed your business when you decided wedding vows were more like wedding suggestions. I just made sure people knew who they were hiring. Consider it a public service announcement. I hung up. After Marcus's session ended at noon, I sat in my red Jeep in the parking lot and created the Instagram post Marin and I had carefully planned over the past few days. Chose the perfect wedding photo, Tegan holding my bouquet, both of us smiling like the future was guaranteed. Added the divorce filing screenshot with proper redactions. Wrote the caption that had been forming in my head all week. Hit share at 12:47 p.m. By the time I got home at 1:30, it had 400 likes. By 3 p.m., over 1,000. By evening, the numbers were approaching 2,000. Comments flooded in from mutual friends, former classmates, random Austin residents who'd heard through the grapevine. Someone had apparently already started updating Tegan's business Google reviews. Her 5-star rating had dropped to 4.2 stars by 6 p.m. Apparently, several former clients had been waiting for permission to share their less-than-stellar experiences. Multiple new reviews mentioned ethical concerns, professionalism questions, and one particularly brutal one that just said, "Would you trust her around your fiancé during wedding planning? I wouldn't." Colton showed up at the condo at 7:30. Or rather, tried to. His key didn't work. He banged on the door. I ignored it. He called. I declined. Finally, he texted, "Riley, please, let me explain. Let me fix this." I texted back, "You can't fix 6 months of betrayal. You can't unsleep with my best friend in our home. You can't unlie every single day. What you can do is sign the divorce papers, accept that the condo stays with me, and pray that Marin doesn't go after the appreciation value of your business ownership as aggressively as she's planning to. That's your best-case scenario. Take it." He tried calling 7 more times that night. I blocked his number. My mom called at 8:15. This time I answered. "Mom, I know you've been trying to reach me. Colton and I are getting divorced. He had an affair with Tegan for 6 months. I'm fine. I have a great lawyer. I'll call you this weekend with details, but right now, I need space. I love you." She started to respond, but I gently interrupted. "Mom, I promise I'm okay. I just need a few days. I'll call Sunday." We hung up with her, worried but respecting my boundaries. Saturday morning, I woke up to a text from Wade. Bought Colton out of his partnership. Effective immediately. Marin helped negotiate. Thank you for the referral. Also, you're welcome at the box anytime. Membership on the house for a year. And I heard from Sienna he's been sleeping on my couch the last 2 nights. He'll need to find somewhere else by Monday. Sweet, sweet consequences. Sunday, I went to brunch with Sienna and 3 other women from the box who'd apparently formed an impromptu support squad. We ate breakfast tacos at Veracruz All Natural on East Cesar Chavez, and they told me what had happened after Friday. Colton had tried to continue teaching class after being served, but more than half the members walked out mid-workout. Wade had to take over. By Friday afternoon, the member complaints and cancellation threats had reached critical mass. Wade called an emergency meeting and told Colton to take a permanent leave of absence while they resolved the partnership situation. He looked destroyed, Sienna said, like his whole world had ended. That's what happens when you build a life on lies, I said, biting into my migas taco. Eventually, the foundation collapses. Basic engineering. Later that afternoon, Tegan's business partner Sloan posted a statement on their company Instagram. Effective immediately, I am dissolving my partnership with Tegan Morrison. Integrity and trust are foundational to our work with couples celebrating their commitment to each other. I will continue coordinating weddings independently and honoring all existing contracts under my sole management. Monday afternoon, exactly 10 days after I'd found that note, Maren called with the final update. Colton signed everything. Full settlement. Condo stays yours. He gets his personal belongings, his truck, and $12,000 from the joint savings. The remaining balance after we deducted $31,000 for reimbursement of documented affair expenses including hotels, jewelry, and restaurant charges paid with marital funds. Wade bought out his partnership for $120,000. That's lowballed, but Colton had zero negotiating power given the membership exodus and public scandal. And the best part? There's a best part? Texas is a fault-based divorce state. His adultery is now part of public record. Any future relationships, any business partnerships, anyone who Googles him will see it. Permanent digital consequences. I leaned back on my couch, the couch I'd kept, in the condo I'd kept, in the life I was rebuilding. Maren, you're an artist. No, she corrected. I'm just very good at my job. You're the artist. You documented everything perfectly, stayed calm, and executed flawlessly. I just filed the paperwork. 6 months after finding that note in the cargo shorts that changed my life, I'm sitting on the balcony of my South Congress condo. Sorry, just my condo now, no qualifiers needed. Drinking morning coffee and watching Austin wake up below me. The exposed brick walls that I specifically chose, the furniture I specifically picked, the life I'm specifically building without someone actively sabotaging it behind my back. Turns out, divorce is expensive, emotionally exhausting, and somehow the best investment I've ever made. The official decree came through 3 months ago. Texas has a mandatory 60-day waiting period for divorce, but when one party has documentation of a 6-month affair complete with timestamps, hotel receipts, and enough deleted messages to fill a small novel, things move faster. Colton signed everything Maren put in front of him because, as she eloquently explained, he had the legal standing of a wet paper bag. Final tally. I kept the condo, the red Jeep, my business accounts, and $31,000 in reimbursement for dissipated marital assets. Lawyers speak for money he spent on his affair that should have gone toward our actual marriage. Colton walked away with his truck, his protein powder collection, $12,000 from our joint savings, and a reputation that's basically unsalvageable in Austin's tight-knit fitness community. Wade officially bought him out for $120,000. Now here's the math that makes it satisfying. The business was valued at roughly $400,000. Colton's 51% stake was worth approximately $204,000. He sold for $120,000, an $84,000 loss, or a 41% discount from actual value. But when you're served divorce papers during your own class, lose 40% of your membership base within a week, and have your business partner threaten to sue you for reputation damage, your negotiating position resembles a house of cards in a windstorm. Last I heard through the impressively efficient Austin Gossip Network, Colton moved to Houston. Started working at some corporate gym, teaching spin classes to people who don't know his history. Good for him, honestly. Everyone deserves a fresh start, even people who spectacularly destroy their previous lives through their own choices. Tegan's story is somehow more satisfying. Her wedding coordination business, the one she'd built over 5 years with Sloan, the one with the stellar Google rating and the waiting list of brides, completely imploded. Within 2 weeks of my Instagram post and Sloan's dissolution announcement, she'd lost 4 active contracts and 7 pending consultations. Brides started requesting refunds, citing moral character clauses in their agreements. Her rating dropped from 5 stars to 4.2, but the comments were devastating. Would you trust her around your fiancé? And integrity matters in vendors. Tegan tried reaching out once through a mutual friend, asking if we could talk and find closure. I responded through the same friend. Closure is what you get when you close a door. I'm not opening this one. She moved back to San Antonio 3 months ago, apparently working at her uncle's real estate office. The career pivot from planning dream weddings to showing strangers' houses feels appropriately ironic. But here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. The anger eventually gets boring. For weeks, I was furious. Righteously, justifiably furious. Every morning I woke up angry. Every night I went to bed cataloging everything they'd done. It was exhausting, and worse, it was unproductive. Anger is heavy, and I'm a personal trainer. I know better than to carry unnecessary weight. So I made a choice Grammy would have approved of. I got strategic about happiness. I'd been maintaining workout programs for clients who paid me directly through my business account, tracking progress, adjusting nutrition plans. I realized I could transform this into something bigger. Took my most dedicated clients and created a premium small group training program, maximum 12 people, highly personalized programming, nutrition coaching included. Built it into a full business within 4 months. Now I have 12 clients in my core group paying premium rates, and I've started taking on a few additional private clients. I'm more profitable than I ever was doing random sessions at various gyms. Started a YouTube channel explaining form breakdowns and nutrition basics. Currently at 12,000 subscribers, which means I'm apparently good at explaining why your squat depth matters and why you don't actually need 17 supplements. Joined a book club. Took a pottery class where I made exactly one bowl that looks like it survived a small explosion. Started dating. Nothing serious, just coffee with interesting humans who aren't secretly sleeping with my best friend. Went to therapy, because apparently processing betrayal with a licensed professional is more effective than processing it with a bottle of wine and rage. And the weirdest part? I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. Not the performative, look how great my life is. Instagram happiness that I'd been performing for years while Colton was busy building his side relationship. Real happiness. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are, what you're worth, and what you won't tolerate. My friend Sienna asked me last week if I regretted marrying Colton, and I surprised myself by saying no. Not because the marriage was good, it clearly wasn't, but because it taught me that I'm way more resilient than I thought. I can deadlift 200 pounds, survive a public betrayal, rebuild my entire life, and still show up for my clients at 6 a.m. with a smile. That's not weakness. That's industrial strength resilience with a side of strategic pettiness. Marin and I have lunch monthly now. She's become less my attorney and more my friend who happens to be exceptional at destroying people legally. Last week, she told me she's using my case as a teaching example in a continuing legal education seminar about documentation and digital evidence. I'm apparently the gold standard for what to do when you discover infidelity. Grammy would have loved that. My mom and I had that long conversation 2 days after everything exploded. She cried I didn't, and eventually she understood that I was genuinely okay. Now she texts me weekly with motivational quotes and occasionally with questions about whether I'm eating enough vegetables. Mom things, normal things, good things. Do I think about Tegan sometimes? Sure. 9 years of friendship doesn't just disappear. But I think about her the way you think about a restaurant that gave you food poisoning, with the knowledge that it happened, gratitude that you survived, and absolute certainty that you're never going back. Do I think about Colton? Less than I expected. He's become this person I used to know, like a character from a book I read years ago and barely remember the plot of. Sometimes I see couples at coffee shops doing that thing where they're both on their phones ignoring each other, and I wonder if that's what we looked like. Probably. We were performing a relationship while he was living a double life, and I was too busy trusting him to notice. Here's what I learned. Trust isn't naive. Betrayal isn't your fault. And the best revenge isn't actually revenge. It's building a life so good that your ex becomes irrelevant to your happiness. Colton didn't take anything from me that I couldn't rebuild better. He took 4 years, some money, and my belief that people always mean their wedding vows. But I kept my strength, my business, my condo, and my grandmother's wisdom about always having an escape plan. Grammy was right about men. Not because all men are trash, they're not, but because having your own money, your own property, and your own plan means nobody can trap you in a situation you didn't choose. Financial independence isn't unromantic. It's insurance against becoming the person crying on her lawyer's couch because she ignored red flags for years. So here I am, 29 years old, divorced, thriving, and completely at peace with how everything unfolded. The life I'm building now isn't what I planned at 25 when I said I do in front of 150 people. It's better. It's honest. It's mine. And if Colton ever thinks about me in Houston while teaching spin classes to strangers, I hope he remembers this. I wasn't the woman he could lie to forever. I was the woman who found out, documented everything, and burned his entire world down with a smile and excellent legal representation. Some lessons require expensive tuition. His cost him everything. Mine cost me a cheating husband I didn't want anyway. Best trade I ever made.